Show, the #1 rated pregame, intermission, and postgame show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator. And it is once again a great night to be a Philadelphia Flyers fan. Somebody has their speakers on. I assume it's probably Ant. Of course it was. Welcome in. We have a mediator on pregame this evening, an early start for tonight's Flyers game. And that, of course, is none other than a man who many consider the encyclopedia of Flyers history, the most knowledgeable man in the history of the Philadelphia Flyers franchise and media.
Thanks, Russ.
None other than Bill Meltzer. Bill, welcome to the Press Row Show.
Always a pleasure, guys. I give that honor to the late Jay Greenberg, but that's quite a compliment.
Well, it has to be passed down at some point, right?
Yeah.
Right? So you're the greatest living
There we go.
encyclopedia of Flyers history. So there you go. Does that work? All right. That'll work. It's great to have you, Bill. Obviously, it's a game that, there's a lot to talk about tonight. The home opener did not go as anybody wanted it to go. They had a nice day off Sunday. A day where the players kind of felt relieved to have a day off. They were able to get their feet back under them after the crazy travel out west and flying back cross country. And then, that struggle, that's a little bit of a struggle bus to play in a game that quick, right? Right away. So you get that, a good day of practice, and now you get the Capitals, first division game tonight, and some lineup changes. Now, two of them aren't huge surprises. I would say one is certainly not a huge surprise. Nick Seeler is finally healthy. He's able to come back in. So he comes in. Eric Johnson goes out. I think that's kind of what you anticipated your starting six defensemen to be. Nick Delorier is going to play his first game. Jet Luchenko has not played particularly well the last couple games out. He really didn't see a lot of ice time last game. So he comes out. They're really kind of working him the way that they need to before they make a ultimate decision, which is going to be to go back to junior. Ultimately, I promise you guys he's not staying. But that's what they're doing. But the surprise move is Tyson Forster not in the lineup. Yeah. I guess technically Noah Cates comes in for Luchenko and Delorier comes in for Forster, just positionally. But anyway you look at it. Anyway you look at it. No, there's Dan Hilferty. Interesting decision to take Tyson Forster out of the lineup 6 games into the season.
Yeah. You remember last year the Flyers started the season in Columbus and Ottawa. One game brings that.
Oh, listen to that. Listen to those dulcet tones.
The pipes.
There we go.
There we go, yes. One game brings that, one game Forster sat.
Yeah.
But after that, Tyson was not a healthy scratch again the rest of the season.
Correct.
He did not have a particularly good camp in preseason. It was all right. Did have the first goal of the season, opening night. But I think the biggest thing with him, if he's not scoring, they look for him to win a lot of battles on the walls and those kind of things. All the little game, the small area game, that kind of thing, hasn't really been doing that. But then again, what have the Flyers been doing collectively 5-on-5?
Right.
He's just one of many.
For sure. And the way I look at it, Bill, is, look, when you are a player who's developing, and there's no question Tyson Forster is still a developing player, right? It's not linear for everybody. Everybody's development is kind of a winding path at times, right? Yeah. And so I look back at it, and this is where I worry about. If you remember in Torts' first year here, Noah Cates got all the love in the world for the way he played. Yep. And they loved the way he played that two-way game, right? And he was, even a couple people, I think, gave him Selke votes at the end of the year.
Hysterical.
Which was ridiculous, but they did, okay? But he had a really nice rookie season. Yeah. Last year, he takes a big step backwards. Yeah. Now he's not really been in the line. I think he's played one game so far, right? And now he's finally getting back in tonight. So that's kind of a big step backward, and you say maybe his development isn't linear. But I'm worried, are we looking at Tyson Forster kind of doing the same thing? And if so, it's one thing to say it for Noah Cates, who's, a mid to late round draft pick who you don't really expect a lot out of. Tyson Forster's a first round guy. Yeah. You don't want it to become that.
No, for sure. I don't think you want it getting in his head at all. I think one of the big things for Tyson this year is, he had
Bundy, by the way.
Yeah, he had 20 goals as a rookie last year, but the Flyers were counting on a big jump this year.
Right.
And if there was one criticism of Forster last year, the two-way game was solid, but his offense would come in little spurts, and then he would go 12, 15 games, with just a couple points in there. They're looking for a jump this year. You mentioned Cates. He's an older player. He's 25 now. Really counted on mainly to be a defensive forward, but I think he had a little bit of a target on his back last year when the head coach said before the season, I think he can get us 20 goals. And he had that injury right after Thanksgiving, and then he was out to the latter part of January. But even Thanksgiving, he only had one goal, and that was a total fluke goal in the game in Vegas, which if Flyers fans remember that was the same game the Phillies lost in the league championship series.
Right.
And it was a crazy late start. But his goal in that game was just one of those crazy ones that goes in, but that's all he managed till the later part of the season, until he came back in the second half. I personally like him better as a left winger. I think he's a good forechecker, a good F1 coming in, creating turnovers. Even if he's not scoring, I think there's value with that. John Tortorella likes him at center. He wants him at center. And with giving Luchenko the 9-game run-up here, that's kind of forced Cates out of the lineup. If and when Luchenko goes back to Guelph, and I agree with you that that's probably coming, then I think Cates comes back into the bottom six. Then the Flyers go back to an issue they had last year. I think that they had and have 4 legitimate NHL centers. The problem being there's a redundancy, and at least 3 of them are bottom six kind of centers, and they don't have a real first line kind of guy.
Well, let me actually push back on that notion that the Flyers have 4 centers. Who would you say are the 4 NHL level centers on this team? If Luchenko's gone, who are the 4?
I think it's the 4 you had last year. Couturier to me is still an NHL center. Frost is an NHL center, right? I think if he's playing center, Kate and Paling, but they're both kind of fourth line guys. That's the thing.
So the reason I ask is because the coach apparently doesn't think that John Couturier is a center.
Yeah.
Because the last game he played him fourth line wing, and people get very upset. It's weird. I was talking about this before the game. There's a lot of Torts worship that happens here. People think that we've become the anti-Torts show because he's been a Richard to Anthony in the past. We can say Dick. We can say Dick. They can say it on the radio. We can say it. But Richard, he's a Richard to Anthony. No, I don't like narcissists. I get narcissistic vibes off of Torts in a way that I've only ever seen a few coaches in Philly have. And I think that there's some kind of emotional level that fans have kind of bonded with Torts because we like brash people. We think brash is fun. But if players don't continue to improve and develop, the question then becomes, who's the guy to take the team into the future? And I wasn't convinced at the hiring that he was the guy. I'm still not convinced that he's the guy. We look at Forster. Is he getting better? You look at Tippett. There are moments where Tippett looks like he's finding confidence. But man, 2-on-1 in the last game. Couldn't get the puck even remotely close to going on net. How much of that would you say is coaching? And how much of that is just on execution of the player? York looks like he's gotten better. I wonder how much of that is Shaw, maybe more so than the head coach. How much of this right now do you put on his development or the regression or the plateauing of players on coaching versus the players themselves?
I think you have to look at a little longer sample within the season. I don't think 5 games is a fair sample.
Sure.
If you have 5 games in January that are a little bit down, nobody's paying attention to that 5-game stretch. It's just at the beginning of the year, it draws a lot of attention. Now, that being said, there is reason for concern, right? The team has, particularly at 5-on-5, not looked good, and you do want to see guys continuing to progress. I think when you add some of the elements in here with John Tortorella, you look around the entire NHL, there is one coach left in the league who was born before 1960. Just one. Now, if Joe Quenneville were to come back or Bruce Boudreau were to come back or something, you'd have 2.
Sure.
Right. But there's only one. you add in the fact that he's a lame duck coach after the season. John Tortorella himself has said that the situation he had in Columbus, where he was a lame duck coach, was not good for anybody, including for him.
Yeah.
That's the situation. After this year, you're basically looking at, do you extend him into his 70s, or do you look for a successor after this year? Whether that's Mike Sullivan, if he's out there from Pittsburgh, and he has the Tortorella seal of approval. He's kind of his protege. They're close friends. It would almost be a natural transition. Brad Shaw is a candidate. The thing with Shaw is that even Shawsy is now in the 60s, and guys get that knock. And it's like the Craig Ramsey syndrome. Great assistant coach, but is he a head coach?
Yeah.
And I think fairly or unfairly, I think Brad Shaw has a little bit of that. Sometimes those cerebral, kind of soft-spoken coaches get tagged with that a little bit, and it's hard to shake, particularly as they get a little up, into their 60s. So there's a lot of things to consider that are ancillary to that, but it's his third year too, and he's been with a lot of these guys for the full duration. At a certain point, coaches tend to get tuned out, and the third year is one of those dangerous spots, particularly where the Flyers were a surprise team that got to the precipice of the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So I do think that there are warning signs that need to be corrected. That these elements that you want to see, I think they have to happen sooner than later for the team to be in a good spot. But right now it's not the start they wanted. That's fair.
So on Saturday, the coach didn't think that Sean Couturier was a center, right?
No.
Had him playing left wing. Tonight, he's centering the top line with Owen Tippett and Matvei Michkov.
Right.
It's interesting. Well, he also played the most minutes, right, of any forward the other night, despite the fact that he started on the fourth line.
I think it was the most minutes that he's played this season. I don't think it was of any. I think it was of any.
I think it was fourth
among the forwards. Yeah.
It's interesting, though. I mean, listen, I don't think Couturier looks very good. I don't think that Couturier looks like the guy that we all kind of hope and expect him to be. We have to be fair here.
Yeah.
And I think that the thing that was maybe more upsetting, it certainly raised a lot of eyebrows. Like, I need people to understand. I even need, like, the Torts loyalists to understand. The decision to put Couturier on the fourth line as a winger in his 800th game at the home opener raised eyebrows across the league. It wasn't just like, oh, these two jamokes were like, what the heck's this? Bundy was just like, what the heck? There were people who are active in the game. There are people who are no longer coaching or front office executives in the game, players. I went on the Morning Cup of Hockey show over on Daily Faceoff. They were kind of beside themselves. That was a hell of a move.
Yeah.
And I keep wondering, Bill, you mentioned tuning out. Last year, he fired a lot of shots. He tried to galvanize the team. He benched Couturier. It's a move that you make when you're trying to take a team that's middle of the standings and push them to be a cup contender.
Yeah.
It's not a move that you make when you're trying to get a below-average team into the playoffs.
Right.
And I do worry that there is an element of tuning out. And I think that's what he did the other night. You're taking shots in moments that don't matter, in times that it doesn't make sense to do it.
You only have so many buttons you can push, and when you push the, I don't want to say nuclear button, but when you push the, the get the room's attention button,
Sure.
right? If that doesn't work, then where do you go from there? That can be a concern. This is also a concern. Last year Couturier, if you remember, midway through the season, he was averaging 3 points every 4 games. Yeah. And then he had the core muscle issue, and then he fell off the wall, basically, in the second half of the season. Then had the core muscle surgery in the summer. So now he's had 2 back surgeries and a core muscle surgery. And core muscle surgeries, they're no joke. I mean, right. Players typically take up to a half a season. But that's in his 30s on the heels of two back surgeries. Yep. So it is something that they need to really monitor. And whether it's admitted or not, he was overplayed in the first half last year.
Yes.
I think the feeling at the time was, well, we're winning and we need him, but it had a negative effect in the second half because I do think he was overplayed and he didn't get back to where he was. Now, could it be last season in reverse where he struggles early, it snaps in, and I mean that's still certainly possible. It's still early in the season, but you just have to look at the early signs, and there are signs of concern if you look at it honestly.
The thing that's crazy though, and I'll get you in here.
Yeah.
The thing that's crazy is, that line of thinking has been thrown out there for over a year now. He was playing so much because they needed him. What the hell did they need him for? It was year one of an admitted rebuild.
Yeah.
They needed him to win games in a season that they set the expectations low. In a way, if you think about it, macro view, Tortorella almost set himself up for failure in that they pushed all those buttons last year. They had excellent goaltending. Hart and Ersson to start the season is something you're just not going to replicate this year. It won't happen. You got all these things going your way, and you probably ran Couturier into the ground chasing this thing down. But in doing so, you raised the expectations. You got the fans back on board, but maybe a little bit too far. Maybe got their expectations too high. And the team spent the whole offseason essentially saying, like, well, no, like, guys, that was great, but we're still rebuilding here. You've done this thing where you've kind of messed with expectations, and at some point, if the results don't get better, a lot of those people who came into the season with unrealistically high expectations are going to start to get upset. And you don't want to lose those people. You just got them back.
No, for sure. I mean, there was much more energy in the building, many more people in the building. You want to be competitive, I don't think you sound the alarm bells after you go back to the road trip, okay? And if you take away the Seattle game, the second period of the Seattle game, because that's where the wheels fell off. But coming back from that trip at 2-1-1, it would have felt like a decent trip. Not a great trip, but a decent trip. And then you could go in, the turnaround, the travel, etc. I don't listen. Everybody deals with the same things, right? Every team's going to travel coast to coast at some point. You have to play those games and win them. That's what the better teams manage to do. But I'm saying, like, if you get off the little better start, then you can excuse a little bit.
Bill, you're so right, because if it was they're 1-3-1 right now, if they're 2-2-1 right now, regardless of where the 2 wins were, where the 2 losses were, and where the 1 overtime loss was, if they're 2-2-1 after their first 5 games, everybody's like, hey, all right.
Yeah,
it's not great, but it's not terrible.
Exactly.
But they're 1-3-1, and it's like, oh no, panic is set in. Everything's awful. Everything's going away. Look, I think that there are concerns with the team, but they are not concerns that surprise me. I can't say enough to go back and listen to what we said, and I know we didn't do a lot in the summer, but when we talked in the summer. When we did, we said these things. We said we tried to warn people. You know what? This reeks of a step back year because of last year was so, and there goes the banner again. Last year was so unexpected as far as the outcomes, right? But outcomes are not always what you're looking for in a rebuild. You can't just look at outcomes in a rebuild. You have to look at each individual player's progress and growth within that, whether the team's winning or losing. You can have guys who are going really well and the team's losing a lot of games just as easily as you can have guys kind of going the other way and you're winning games, right? So the outcome is not what you look at. And unfortunately, we all, including you, Russell, get caught up in outcomes being the determinant of what a rebuild looks like and is.
Right.
What does that mean, the
outcomes of games? Yeah. In other words, you like to base rebuild, what a rebuild is, off of the game's outcomes.
I like to base it off of when you get to the draft, are you able to make the moves that you want to be able to make? Jetlachenko looks like a good player.
Okay.
He looks like a good player.
And they traded down to get him.
He looks like a good player. Would I have much rather see them to be in a position where they finish with the 7th worst record and can trade up to go after a Demigod?
Did anybody trade down out of those top spots?
No.
Why do you think that is?
Except the Flyers had.
Why do you think that is?
Because no one offered an attractive enough package to move up.
And so why do you think if the Flyers were at, say, 7,
because they
suddenly
have three.
could have.
Well, they have 3 first-round picks this year, right?
Now they do.
Now they do.
They
had
didn't at the
2. They had
time,
2
yeah.
going in.
Yeah, and
And
one
what,
of them was,
two
one of them was
seconds,
at the very back end, ass end of the first round.
I just looked at it as you could have been in position to go and get a
You
guy.
could have.
You could have.
But there was no guarantee to that.
Except the thing is that when you put yourself in purgatory, you hurt your chances of moving
But
up in the
who says
lottery.
that you're in purgatory?
Jet Lacheko might be a good player. We don't know.
But who says you're in purgatory?
When you just barely miss the playoffs,
No, that if
you
do
are
it,
in hockey purgatory.
if you do it repeatedly.
No, even in the case of 1 year, when you set the expectations as this is a rebuild.
Are the Devils in purgatory?
I don't think the Devils are a particularly great team.
Are you out of your mind?
I don't think they're a great team.
They're going to win.
I think they have
a
some
real
really,
chance
they have
to win
some
this
really
division
good
this
players.
year. It's either them or the Rangers.
But remind
win
me,
this
how
division
did they
this year.
get their best player?
They were bad, but then. But wait a second,
they were
Russell.
bad. They
But
were
wait,
bad, or they were
last year-
purgatory.
Last year, they just missed the playoffs. So you don't want to be in hockey
They
purgatory.
already have their
and
elite.
now you have a
But
chance
how
to win
many
the division
players
again.
do they have that you would consider to be elite or elite adjacent?
One
Or
maybe-
very good.
One,
All-star caliber
2?
players. How many do the Flyers have?
one,
They have 1
maybe 2.
that
we
they
don't know about-
lucked into because he wouldn't take a meeting with Phoenix, and because there was a geopolitical situation.
Well, it's so much
They lucked
easier
into
to
having
be.
him
It's
move
so much
down. Like-
easier to look back and have the clairvoyance of the past. It's so much easier to be negative.
I would
95% of the time.
rather, if you're rebuilding, be in a higher position to get the player you want up high in the draft, because you have a better chance of hitting in the top 5 than you do
Sure.
at like number 13.
Sure, you do.
Bill, am I crazy?
No, drafting top 5, yeah, it statistically gives you a better
Sure.
chance. However, the teams that tend to eventually contend, and those are teams that drafted well later in the first round, found some players later in the draft, right? Look at what the Florida Panthers did, finding a Carter Verhaeghe, who's you bring in as a free agent. And it was kind of a cast off, and all of a sudden he's a scorer for you.
He's a star.
He's a step. So that's really what it takes. And when there is not just one way of doing it, Russ. That's the thing. You look at all those years where Boston was the top team. What was their core, right? Well, their core was
All guys drafted low.
correct.
All
Pasternak late first round, Bergeron second round, Marchand third round, right? And that was their core.
Yeah.
And no, you can't bank on you're going to find those kind of players.
That's the thing. Like, that's the thing that does set apart a team that goes from good to great.
Yeah.
Could be an elite team, scouting, front office. You find those.
And a bit of
you
luck.
find- you
Yeah.
find those guys and you execute. Like, I don't disagree with that at all. There aren't a lot of teams that are able to find those guys in the earlier rounds, but like aren't getting them in that top spot. I just look at it back to I think a GM gets 3 to 5 years, right? I think if you're a well-liked GM, you have a good relationship with the ownership, you get 3 to 5 years. And in the first year of a rebuild, it's a perfect time to potentially go and get yourself one of those high picks. That was it. That's been the whole crux of it. And I think that if that had happened, I would have felt better potentially with the guy top 5 in this past draft. And then you look ahead to next year and you say that whatever happens this year, we now think that if it's Demidov and Mishkov, all right, we have our 2 guys. We have our 2 guys that we want to develop into, call it sacrilege, into what could be your Crosby and your Malkin, your two-headed. I'm saying your two-headed monster. Your 2 guys that you build the whole thing around.
I think you touched on something that the Flyers and every team that's building needs is you need that center to build around. That
Sure.
top of the lineup center. The Penguins had 2 of them.
Yeah.
Right. And while it's great to draft a winger who could be a superstar, really, that old thing about building down the middle, it still works.
Well, I do want to throw this to you, though. Demidov, we've talked about this on the show. Demidov has actually been quoted as saying he thinks that Mishkov could be a center. Have you seen anything to his game that gives you the indication that Mishkov maybe actually could be that franchise center?
Yeah, well, he played a little bit of center in the preseason, the KHL last year. Actually spent most of the preseason at center. Certainly is a playmaking forward. He has all the playmaking skills. He sees the ice the way a center would. So I think he could do it from an offensive standpoint. I don't know that he could handle the defensive side of being a center, and those are pretty heavy defensive responsibilities. That's what my concern would be.
I wouldn't expect him to do it this year. Do you think that in another year or two, getting his legs under him, that might be a time that they
might experiment.
That they experiment with
They might
it?
experiment.
Yeah.
What?
I was just looking to you. Last pregame was mostly you and Kevin Kurz. I feel like this one has been a lot of me and Bill. I'm looking to
That's
you.
all good.
Is there anything that you would like to bring up here with
Well, Bill,
the most knowledgeable man down here?
I mean, Bill and I were actually briefly talking about it before we went live, and we touched on this in the press row show on Saturday, and it only got worse on Saturday. Is the lack of scoring at even strength, and even really the amount of goals they're giving up at even strength, just their even strength play all around. How much of that do you really equate to just guys getting off to bad starts, and how much of it do you equate to there's just no cohesion because you're not playing with the same guys game in, game out?
Well, certainly the cohesion is a piece. I mean, my goodness, the line juggling
is outrageous.
Was in game.
Yeah.
When I do the post-game 5 on the Flyers website, I try to track when there's line juggling, and sometimes there's these two are together for these two shifts, and those two. So if the line stays together, I'll say it. I think that's definitely a piece of it. I think part of it comes to me 3 things, right? One thing is. It was one thing that actually Tortorella himself said, that the team did a lot of their scoring off the rush last year, and Sean Walker was helping trigger breakouts. They don't have Walker anymore and whatnot, but he wanted more grind. So they tried to tweak things a little bit to try to get pucks in, work the puck down low a little bit, and work. So some of that has changed, and they haven't really adapted to it yet. I think that's a piece of it. I think a piece of it is the passing has been really bad. The opportunities to break out and get up ice have been limited. And the other part, too, is that so much of being able to attack is creating turnovers off of your defensive play. And the defensive structure has been a mess. So, listen, I mean, ultimately, if that doesn't get fixed, that is something that a coach has to own, but there's a lot of players who have to play a lot better. 5-on-5, there are guys who are doing well on the power play. Means Cobb being an example. Yeah. He's doing great on the power play, but he's not doing much at 5-on-5. So if that doesn't get better, so much of the game is played at 5-on-5. That's a real concern. It needs to improve immediately.
There's another big thing going around right now, and it's the backup goalie.
Yep.
And I mentioned earlier that goalie play last year far exceeded expectations, but this year, Ivan Fedotov has not taken the step that I think this organization expected him to with a full training camp, a full preseason. How much of a leash do you think they will give him before they potentially look to give Alexei Kolosov, for example, a look at this level?
There's a leash if he shows improvement. If he has his next start, whether that's probably tomorrow in Washington or one of the weekend games here, not very long at all if he has another start like the one in Seattle or like his first start, because you can't run with that too long. It's been that bad with him so far.
Kolosov is going to get another couple starts, I think, for the Phantoms this weekend. I think that by this time next week, we'll have an answer as to whether Ivan Fedotov is still the backup goalie or he gets waived and Kolosov gets called up.
I agree.
And I think it's the 2 games that Kolosov plays more than what Fedotov does up here, what Kolosov does down in the AHL.
Yeah, and you expect him to be a little bit up and down in the American League, and he has been a little bit. Actually, what I like, not that he gave up 4 goals in the first period on Friday, nobody likes that, but that he didn't give up another goal the rest of the game. He settled in. Yeah, so that tells you something too. But yeah, I mean, there's an opportunity for him if he runs with it.
Yeah, and you know what sucks for the Flyers? You know what goes on over there in the KHL? They tell their players that the competition in the American Hockey League is not as good as the KHL.
Well, as somebody who watches KHL, the best KHL teams are better than better than the AHL team.
Yeah.
But the median of the league is sub AHL.
Correct.
As a matter of fact.
Correct. And so, like, that's part of the issue. And so these players come over and they think, oh, well, I can play in a league that's better than the AHL. I deserve my shot in the NHL. And then it turns out, well, maybe that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
There's a really important bit of news that broke about an hour ago. We didn't bring it up on the show, but I'm going to bring it up on the screen. Scott Lawton
Yes.
is a dad. There we go.
Yes, congratulations.
He's married, right? Like, I remember him proposing.
His wife's Chloe, yes.
His wife, Chloe. Congratulations to them on the birth of Reed Leo Lawton. That's awesome.
Right, yes.
Is he?
Well,
he's not playing tonight.
He
right?
is playing.
Why the hell is he
Yeah,
playing?
yeah.
Go support your wife in the hospital. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. One of those things that
He's a
pop
hockey
up
player.
He's a hockey player.
That make you feel old. Remember the draft in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Talked to him after the draft. And his first day of his first development camp. So one of the things you feel old. But congratulations.
Absolutely congratulations. I can still remember doing the what was the thing that we used to do down the shore? I keep forgetting the name of the trial on the aisle. We used to do the trial on the aisle. So his first trial on the aisle, he didn't really know what to do like most of the time. And we were just kind of like hanging out the whole time. Like he was like my shadow the entire time around during trial on the aisle. And now he's out there, having his first kid. It's awesome. So congratulations to Scotty and Chloe. That's fantastic. Really good stuff. Well, Bill, I know it's almost game time. You have a thought on what we might see out there tonight?
I think this first period is going to tell you a whole lot. I expect the Flyers to try to come out with energy. I wouldn't be surprised to see Delorier go at Tom Wilson pretty quickly. If you find yourself chasing the game, I'm worried. But if the Flyers can settle in, I think it's a winnable game tonight.
Very cool. Well, Bill Meltzer, as always, thanks for all your wonderful insight. We'll have you back on the program again soon.
Always a pleasure, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Bill. All right, so that actually does lead us to the predictions part of our show.
Prediction time.
Bundy has sent over his prediction. He has the Flyers winning tonight, 5-4.
Wow.
5-4 Flyers. High-scoring affair.
Yeah.
Intern Andrew, let's go to you.
4-2 Flyers.
4-2 Flyers. Wow. I'll jump in here.
Go ahead.
I think it's going to be 4-2 Capitals.
Okay. Welcome, Bundy. We just announced your prediction of 5-4. Why do you think that?
No, get your prediction in quick before he gives us, because we're almost out of time.
All right, fine. 3-2 Flyers.
Okay. Why do I think that? I'm just going to go with a wave ride. Like, it felt like it's been down. I think they played okay last game but didn't score. It wasn't great, don't get me wrong, but I think they had chances to generate, and I think they'll have an opportunity to score some goals here tonight against the Capitals team. But they're going to have to be ready. Like, Washington's going to come in. They're feeling good about themselves, and they're thinking to themselves, hey, we win here tonight, we got a good chance of getting 4 points in 2 games here in the next 24 hours. So I don't know, but I think this is a critical game for the Flyers. I do. I mean, you go to 1-4-1, you will have lost 5 in a row. I think it needs to end right now. It has to stop somehow. They ended everything that was bad last year until the end of the year. Everything went well. They were winning games they shouldn't have won sometimes. They were playing great. They were all pulling the weight rope for each other, and they have to get back to that because as we sit right now, no matter whether you like it or you don't like it or whatever has gone on, they've lost 4 games in a row after an overtime win. They haven't had a regulation win yet. So this is a good opportunity here tonight in the home and home to come out and say to the Capitals, you know what, we're going to take care of our business. We can't worry about what you do. And that's how it just make the focus about themselves. That's why I think they'll have a good chance of winning tonight.
We are going to be back for first intermission, second intermission, and postgame here on the Snow the Goalie channel on YouTube, on Facebook, X. If you haven't done so already, like the video. That's huge. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the Snow the Goalie channel on YouTube. We'll see you guys all in the first intermission. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you soon. And in the meantime, we'll have the StatCast up, so you never even have to leave the stream. Use it. I don't know. Have the stats up while the game's going on. Here we go. Talk to you very soon. Welcome back into the Press Row Show, first intermission. I'm going to read a text that I got in that period from a buddy of mine who's a Rangers fan.
Okay.
Quote, good thing they didn't give up 2 shorthanded goals at home in a period. Otherwise, this would be effing embarrassing.
Hey,
and here we are.
Hey, at least they're even at 5-on-5.
Well, there's a bright side to it, Anthony.
Hey, you know what? We're going to take that positivity all the way to the bank. Absolutely love it. Anyway, welcome back into the Press Row Show. We are trying really hard to find good things to take out of that first period. But in fairness, there aren't a lot of positives to take out of it. And I'll throw it to you first. Sure, even at 5-on-5, has this team done anything to inspire any kind of confidence through the first period?
Inspire is the key word there, Russ, because they're lacking their own inspiration.
Wow.
Like, I don't.
That's deep.
And well, here's the thing, and this is what should be the most troubling is you enter this game coming off of a 4-game losing streak. You kind of had an excuse or two that you could have leaned on for why you lost a couple of those games. Okay, fine. But you had 2 days off. You're playing a team that's not great in the Washington Capitals. This is an opportunity for you to say, okay, we'll show you that those first 5 games where, there was some extenuating circumstances that led to us losing the, 4 in a row. And you come out with the first 20 minutes that look like that. That's disappointing. You have a fight. It was a great fight, by the way.
That was a very nice fight.
Delorier, McElrath fight was sensational.
2 heavyweights there.
And it did nothing. It did nothing to inspire.
Yeah, I gave them a pass last game.
Yeah.
At the end, I don't know if you heard it, but Scotty Lawton said it had nothing to do with travel or coming home from Seattle. I said I beg to differ with Scotty. I'm going to give them a pass tonight. They look like an exhausted team. But that being said, that was a lifeless first period. Yeah. I mean,
they had 2 breakaways. Other than that, I don't think they did anything.
If you gave a mouse a 6-pack of beer to drink, you could have heard him fart halfway through.
You write that? Yeah, okay.
You got that some great quotes? That's how quiet it was.
We're going to make a Bundy book this year.
All right, well, you're going to have a nice book there. It'll be my second one then. I mean, that's how bad it was, guys. It was so quiet. I don't know if it's the early start, but you can't feel your way into a game. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you going.
You got me, man. You got me.
The early start hasn't hurt the Caps. I mean, the Caps don't look great, but
I'm with you, Russ. They haven't looked great either. But when you give them 2 breakaways on your own power play, it's 2-0. You're going to pay for that. I mean, it doesn't mean they've been okay. Listen, if you look at the Caps game, the one thing they've done a good job of in the first period, the Flyers have not, just getting pucks into the zone. The Flyers are turning pucks over. They got one guy trying to beat 3 or 4 sometimes. It's not working. It's not working. And then when you get a power play, it's supposed to electrify you, give you some life. It sucked the life right out of them because you gave up 2 power play goals on your 2 power play chances.
I'll tell you, and it started real early, Bundy. And it was funny because we were sitting there. It was 0-0 at the time. It was early in the period. And
Joel, you see the one about the mouse?
Yes,
the mouse sharded?
Yeah, we saw
it. He sharded all right.
That joke was already better than anything the Flyers did in the first.
Yeah.
Anyway,
back to you, Ant, for the actual hockey
analysis. Joel Farabee's coming into the zone 1-on-1, right? And we're sitting there like, oh, shoot the puck, make the goalie make a save, drive the net, go for the rebound. Instead, he tries this fancy toe drag move and loses the puck. Doesn't even get the first shot on goal. And it's a simple thing like that, a simple play like that maybe kind of gets lost in the shuffle because nothing happened on going either way on that play. But that's a situation where it's like, if you just do something simple, you might create the energy and the momentum that you need right off the bat, and instead you don't, and this is what you get.
A North type of hockey game is always the best way to at least tell the other team what you intend to do in the hockey game. When you start going east-west in a game and you're starting to make trick plays and you're trying to do things that are a lot that are not successful to what you're trying to do to having success, the Flyers got themselves behind the 8 ball in that period. Now they got to chase the game. And they need to figure out a way to do it. What's going on, buddy?
He wants to take a picture with us. I want to put him on the air.
I
want to put him on the air. I'll find out what his name is.
Let's see how the kid feels about the game.
Come on up.
Come on up. Jump up here, kiddo. How you doing, buddy? Here, put these on. Put these on really quick, all right?
There you go. All right. Now talk right into the microphone.
Tell us your name.
What's your name?
Mason.
Mason. Welcome to Snow the Goalie, Mason.
Are you having fun?
You having a good time? Who's your favorite flyer?
You can tell us.
I don't know. There's all the good ones.
You like Konechny?
Yeah.
Travis Konechny. Konechny is a good one. That's awesome. That's awesome. How many games you get to come to?
How many ever my dad wants to come.
Oh, so your dad is the real fan here, right? You're just hanging out.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So dad brings you to the games, right?
Yeah.
That's a good dad.
So we need a couple of goals in this period, right, to get this thing tied?
Yeah.
All right.
Bring
us some luck.
Yeah.
Say, let's go Flyers, Mason.
Let's go Flyers.
There you go.
All right, buddy.
Mason's already got more
Thank you, buddy.
jam
Give me
than the
a
rest of the team.
Mason, thanks for joining on
That's
Snow the
fantastic. Well
Goalie.
done, Mason.
Thanks,
well
brother.
done.
You got it. No
Thanks,
problem.
Mason.
No
Good job,
problem.
buddy.
So we already had more energy on this show from that kid than we saw from the team in the first.
Yeah.
I don't mean to beat the dead horse, all right? Or bead. You're not supposed to be beat the dead horse, like beating the the mane of the horse. It doesn't matter. I can't understand, and I'm seeing in the comments that there are two camps, and you expect these. One camp is Torts really didn't have the boys ready to play. And the other camp is this isn't on Torts. None of the players are showing up.
Well,
we had this conversation, Bundy, after the last game. And I know it's early, so
man.
I'll preface it.
It's getting late early,
But
Russ.
we had this conversation the other night. What does it look like when a team starts to tune out the coach? I'm not ready to say that they've given up on him. I'm not ready to say that, the end of last year, ending with not ideal. The way that the season has started, there have been a lot of lifeless, listless performances to start the season. I don't know. You've played in this league before. How much of this right now looks like guys just aren't ready? How much of it maybe looks like they're going out there doing whatever they feel because they're not locked in? It doesn't seem like they're in lockstep right now with the coaching staff, I guess is what I'm getting at.
So if you assessed everything from top to bottom right now, it's impossible to not put some blame on the coach. But it always goes back to the players on the ice. So is there a little bit of everything involved here? There is. There's a reason they gave up 2 shorties. There's a reason that the building was quiet and the team was lifeless until about 5 minutes left the first period when they had a little bit of a flurry. So when you have to look at a situation like that and understand what exactly is going on. And to me right now, it's everything. It's a lot of stuff that is coupled with travel, being on the road, coming home after that really bad home opener where they were lifeless, trying to find energy in a 6 o'clock game against a team that's had a good start to the year. But to me, they're better. I think they have some more skill still in the Flyers, the Capitals, with guys like Carlson, like an established one defenseman, and then a guy like Ovechkin and Strome has really taken a step forward. But there's no reason that they should come in here and make it that easy getting 2 shorties. So from where I'm looking at everything, for me to outright say the coach doesn't have a piece of this, that's just not right, because he does. If every part of the group is on the team, and the players are supposed to respond to what the coach puts out for a game plan.
Yeah, I agree. It's early, Russ. I mean, it certainly is. Although
I'm trying to avoid the bias because I know that there are people. I said this pregame. I know that there are people who genuinely think that we have hatred for the coach because of him and you last year.
There's no hatred at all.
Not at all.
I've actually said good things about the coach.
So we all have.
I haven't said many nice things.
We said great things about him. We have.
But I do think that it's a fair thing. It's year 3. Bill Meltzer, who's about as fair as it gets, said it's year 3.
Yeah.
Last year changed expectations. It does feel like this is a disappointing start.
I was going to just agree with you for a second, which is rare on this show.
Wow.
Yes, it is early, right? But twice in the recent past, or I should say recent, I guess in the last 20 years, they fired a coach really early in the season.
Yeah, was Lavi after 7 games?
Lavi was shorter than Hitch. I think Lavi was 5 games.
He ran out of jam.
Hitch I think was 8 or 9 games, and Lavi was 4 or 5, whatever. Yeah. Right? So they've gotten rid of coaches early in the season before. So it would not be. It's not unprecedented. I don't think it's imminent.
No,
but at the same time, it's not unprecedented. That being said, Torts himself, yesterday at practice, when he was talking about you know, and I think it was Wayne Fish that asked him about his, you know, the travel schedule and how that may have affected him. He's like, I don't want to use it as an excuse. I mean, I could have played into the game in the home opener, but we've had all these other problems, and we've got to correct them. He says, we don't have a lot of time. Now, why does the coach say we don't have a lot of time? Does he kind of get the sense that it's kind of at a point now where you only have a few games before you lose the team because you get so far behind? Like, what does he mean by we don't have a lot of time to get it going?
Well, it means there's not a lot of time to practice. It's not like before. And I think the other thing that's become quite evident with the league, and especially in the last couple of years, it's even though it's a longer 82-game season, it almost feels like a 17-game NFL season where every game is just so important. Now, guys, me and Danny were talking about it before the game tonight as I came in just shooting the breeze. And I said, you remember when we played, like going back years, you could, if you had a good team, you could almost kind of ride a wave into the first 20 games, keep your head above water, win games just because you had talent, because there was some other team that was just bad. Yeah. There was bad teams, and they weren't top heavy. But now every team's kind of the same, right? And if you're not ready to play anybody any night, you can lose that game. So I think, like, if the Flyers fall back in 6, 7, 8 games in the standings under 500, man, that's going to take a lot of work to get back to 500 and above that.
I'm going to make a comparison, and I am 100% cognizant of the fact that it is not an apples for apples comparison. However, 2 teams in Philadelphia last season, started really hot, started really well. Now, one had aspirations of winning a title, and one did not. The Eagles and the Flyers both started very well last year. Both benefited from sensational play in the first half of the season.
For the Phillies in those conversations,
and
too.
Then in the second half of the season, it fell apart in a massive way. And a lot of people called, including me, called for Nick Sirianni's job after last year.
I blame the Phillies.
Yeah. Called for Nick Sirianni's job last year, despite the fact that he had taken the team to a Super Bowl. Right. And I get that the Flyers didn't have those expectations last year. I totally get it. But the way that it ended last year, to me, was kind of like, all right, if we think that there's a concern here, that was probably an okay time to cut bait and figure out the next plan. And they seem to like Tortorella in the organization. And I was like, all right, well, maybe he'll just hand it off to Brad Shaw for this season. Like, give him that head coaching opportunity, stay within the organization. I was surprised that he didn't. I'm surprised that he came.
Brad Shaw's not 37 years old, Russ.
I know, but I'm just saying, like
he's had enough chances to be a head coach.
Sometimes the coaches like the idea of, handing it off to somebody that's been loyal to them. So,
that's not the coach's decision.
No,
that's the management's
but I'm
decision.
saying if he stays in the organization.
Well, I don't know that. I mean, you're giving hypotheticals.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. If the coach was done here and he said, I'm going to get fired, but I want to pass it on to one of these two guys, I'm sorry, but I'd have a management meeting to decide that.
Yeah.
That's not
Sure.
his call for anything. I'm just telling you how
Yeah.
structurally it's going to go.
I guess from my standpoint, it's like that's what I thought would have made the most sense. Like if he was going to stay within the organization, that he might prefer trying to hand it off to a Shaw. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. I would say that we gave Shaw a lot of credit last year for the development of some of the young defensemen. Like we've seen Cam York take actual steps forward. We saw moments last year with Travis Sanheim where it looked like he was starting to trend in the right direction, right?
Well, I mean, Aruli.
Yeah.
But again, it's 82 games, Russ. I don't care what you do in 40. I can't care what your bulk of work is through 82 games. It's not always going to be perfect. And I can tell you, man, I had some horrible games every year. Yeah. And that's what happens. That's part of the game. But there's got to be a level of consistency. I remember Bob Clark told me once, when you become a veteran, expect 1 out of every 5 games to not be your best game. That's pretty fair.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Speaking of, he's in the house tonight.
Bob Clark's in the house. Paul Holmgren, Bill Barber. All the gang's all back together again. The band is back. Interesting, though.
It is interesting.
They're not all usually here together.
No, they're not.
At the same time.
They're all here together. We got to throw it to intern Andrew for his.
Is it trivia time?
It's the stat of the night.
Stat of the night.
I gotta say my stat.
Stat of the night. But before we do, intern Andrew, I got to give you a little criticism.
I'm not above criticism.
A little criticism. You're giving too much of a platform to our show troll, our favorite show troll.
What are you talking about?
Evan, you know who our favorite show troll is?
I don't.
Oh,
His voice shouldn't be heard?
Atkins.
Evan Atkins.
Oh, everyone, you can
A
pop up.
valued member of the Snow the Goalie
You
community.
can put water.
A dissenter, someone who believes that we're handed the notes before we do
Yeah,
the
It sounds
show.
like an author's name. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Evan John Atkins.
Yeah,
That's a good author name.
Earlier,
I'm not
he
going to
said.
silence him.
Earlier, he said the show.
That's
was,
right. We believe in free speech.
Earlier, he said the show was getting worse now that we went from Meltzer to Bundy. So just so you know.
Those I did not put up.
Yeah.
Because
I-
I
anyway,
wholeheartedly
stat-
disagree.
stat
I
of the
can't.
night.
I don't mind that you give him a platform every once in a while. It's just that he will put 8,000 comments in there, and he's making it bad for everybody else. So
Let's go to the stat of the night.
once in a blue moon.
We have 2 minutes.
All right,
Stat of the
so
night.
the weekend started off pretty poorly with the Flyers getting shut out on Saturday night 3-0. But I would say it ended on a high note. The Eagles beat the Giants 28-3. Noticeably, Daniel Jones did not have a touchdown pass in that game. He has not thrown a touchdown pass at MetLife Stadium since January 1st, 2023, which means Owen Tippett and Nick Seeler are 2 of the 16 NHL players that have scored a goal in that building more recently than Jones has thrown a touchdown there.
That is unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
You know what? It's a good thing they didn't pay him $50 million. They only paid him $40.
That is a great. I don't even know how to respond to that stat, but that's a great stat.
That's a stat that we should have loaded up into the. This song is called Sky High. Ask me why I know.
Oh, now you're going to get us blocked on
No,
YouTube.
I know. We're going to have to take the segment down. My son, for some reason, found this song. It's like an EDM song, and he puts this song on in the basement while they're building marble drops, and I don't know why. I know it has nothing to do with anything. That's a great stat. That was fantastic work out of you. And you do have a trivia question for the second intermission,
I
correct?
do, yes.
I feel like
So-
he used it.
Yeah.
So if you have not come back in the second intermission before, where's he going? It's not even time for him to walk off. Second intermission, intern Andrew has trivia. Hopefully we'll have something positive to talk about. I don't think Ann will be here.
I probably won't. I have to go, just so people know, I do have to leave early tonight. It's the premiere of the Wing Bowl documentary
Wow.
as part of the Philadelphia Film Festival, and I'm in it. I'm in the documentary, so I have to go be there.
I
for
went
the
to one of
premiere.
those once.
One of the Wing Bowls, yeah?
Once.
Once, yeah. I had to work 6 of them.
Yeah. Me and Glenn Macnow did a post-Wing Bowl once, and I'm like, what the hell did I just watch?
Yeah, I asked myself what I was doing there every year, 6 times. But anyway, so depending on how fast the period goes, you may or may not see me at the second intermission.
In fairness, a lot of people watch this show and wonder what the hell they've been watching. We'll see all of you in the second
All right.
intermission here on the Press Row Show. Talk to you in a second. hello. Welcome to the Press Row Show. I'm Russ Joy. This is Bundy. Anthony SanFilippo is now on assignment. He's in a movie. He's gone to a movie premiere. And you know what? I wish we could go to a movie premiere. The one thing that the folks at home have that we don't is the ability to turn off this game and do literally anything else. But we are here to provide fair and balanced coverage of the first two variants of this game. If you have positivity, drop it in the comments. If you have negativity, drop it in the comments. Intern Andrew will hopefully save us from ourselves in a little bit with second period trivia. But Bundy, where do we even pick up? It was negative in the first. The second period was certainly no better. This is a pathetic performance so far.
It's not been a good game at all. Washington is playing a prototypically perfect road game. And people are like, well, what do you mean? They're just keeping it simple. They're getting pucks in deep. They're taking chances when they're there. They're not a great team. Like they're not a world beater, but they go to the net more. They have better chances going to the net. They just have a little bit more going for them. And the Flyers, 13 shots through two periods. They have not afforded themselves as many power plays as the Capitals. The Capitals have earned some in retrospect. So it's not been a good 40 minutes for the Flyers. That being said, they're not down 4-0. They're down 2-0, and one goal early in the third period changes things a little bit for them. So that will be the focus right now.
So you're saying there's a chance?
Why not? I mean, does it look like it right now? No, but I'm saying that there's always a chance because I don't think Washington are world beaters. But
Washington doesn't look particularly good.
Flyers need to be better. That's simply it. They need a semblance of when they get a rush chance, it's a shot and get net traffic. I haven't really seen a whole lot of that in this game tonight. And you're not going to score a lot of goals unless you fire the puck and you throw guys towards the net with a determined effort for getting a rebound or getting a loose puck and winning a loose puck battle. And we have not seen a lot of that in this hockey game at all. It's been the Flyers want to win easy, and that's not the way this league is usually set up. You'll win some nights easy, but not a lot of them because the other team has to be off their game. And right now, Washington's doing just enough to get pucks out of their zone and to play concertedly with a good effort. And they're going to try to lock things down in the third. The Flyers have got to find some life. They have got to find life here.
Anthony SanFilippo checks in over on Facebook and says, Russ had more shots at my wedding after party than the Flyers had that period. That is true. That is certainly true. There were a lot of shots at that after party. And you know what the best part was, Bundy? Ant's mom is the one who ordered them all.
Really?
In that after party. Ant's mom ran over to me and said, do you want tequila? And I said, you know what? Sure, that sounds great. And she kept bringing it. I actually kind of wish that Ant's mom was here tonight to go over into the Snow the Goalie Sportsbook to the bar and get me a few. This is not. We have to be fair. We know that this isn't a good team. And the more that we see this unfold, the more that you're like, all right, this is what last year was supposed to be. The great goaltending, the buying into Torts and everything in year two kind of lifted this team's spirit and got them in games that they probably didn't belong competing in, got them a few wins they maybe wouldn't have otherwise gotten. But this is the kind of performance we expected last year. It's just not a very talented team.
You're absolutely right. When we said last year that we thought that this would be the way last year went, they didn't. They surprised us. They surprised a lot of teams and good teams. Found ways to win some really big games, and they did it with effort and keeping things simple. That's what works. It was. They did it last year. Now, I know every year is different. You're not going to recreate a single year like as it was the year before. But listen, they didn't make the playoffs last year. The wheels came off late, and they're still off. They are. There's a chemistry issue right now. That's not being unfair to everybody. They can't figure out what they're doing right now, and they need to get more practice time for that to happen. That being said, they just need one goal early in this game to change the look of this hockey game.
I see a comment from Andrew Jacobson saying that Torts called out Coots on national TV. I'd love to know what the comment was. Andrew, if you can find it, or if people in the comments could let us know. I don't know if that was that a pregame thing? Did it just happen?
Where was that? I'm sorry.
I don't know. It's right here. Andrew Jacobson says the head coach called out Coots on national TV. I'd love to know what that was, if it did happen. We don't like to speculate without having seen or heard.
I don't know anything about that. So if someone can elaborate, please do. But I haven't seen or heard anything about that.
So what? I feel like I know the joke is always, what can the Flyers do in the first 5 minutes? Let's not even talk about that. to me, this is about salvaging something tonight. It's not even about going for the win. You know, you talked about get an early goal and try to get this thing straightened back out. I think they just need to show some kind of energy, some kind of passion, some kind of something. Like right now, it just looks like a bunch of guys going through the motions.
There's one thing you can always do in a game of hockey. You can compete. When there's a loose puck, you can strap on those boots, get your stick rolling, your arms getting ready to go, and get in the battle and win that puck battle. It's as much your chance to win the puck as it is the other team. And there's no reason in a 50-50 battle that you can't come out with pucks sometimes. You're not always going to because the other guy's competing too. But I haven't seen a lot of second efforts, third efforts in this hockey game that add up at the end to create a win. Those are the things we saw last year early. Second, third efforts, good saves, good goaltending, good system plays. And we have not seen that at this point.
We got a little bit of context here. He wasn't saying Couturier by name. He was saying that he wasn't happy with the center. Somebody said that he wasn't happy with Mishkov's line, and so he's going to move Paling in there. I don't know.
Well,
I like at some point you almost run out of things to talk about with it. There's not a single guy on the ice tonight that I've said, you know what, at least they've gotten a positive contribution from X. Like, I haven't seen it. You know, maybe you can make the case that in goal, you gave up two shorties. How much of that you put on the goalie, questionable.
Well, they're two breakaways.
Yeah. The one thing that this team can't afford, like in the midst of everything else that's going on, the one thing that this team can't afford is to have Sam Ersson fall apart. I'm not saying that's happening tonight. Again, two shorties. We don't necessarily fault him. He needs to continue to play well. He needs to ultimately look like a number one or a 1B. That part of this is huge. You can deal with a backup goalie not looking good in the case of Fedotov. Ersson has to look good. He's been okay. This Caps team, I think on any given night, like if this Caps team were putting in this performance against most of the teams in the league, they would currently be losing 2-3-0.
They would.
It's just the way that the Flyers have matched the
Caps are off to a good start too. They're 3-1. They had a big win against the Devils on Saturday night, an overtime game. They had a lead in, but they gave up the lead in that game. So there's some hope for looking at the Flyers. The Flyers have had chances, but they're not capitalizing on them. And there's not enough, as someone just said, there's not first effort. Why bother about second and third? You have to start somewhere. And that's the one thing in hockey you can control is your emotion and the way you compete on the ice. So that's where my hope is in the third period to get something going. Washington is not good enough to shut a team out, but they've sure looked pretty darn good through 40 minutes.
The number one question that everyone has at this point, the best kept secret in Philadelphia, I saw somebody tweet, is what the Flyers goal song is. We're a game and 2 periods through. The Flyers have yet to score. We don't know what the goal song is.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I guess we'll find out. I wish I remember who it was that tweeted it out because I would give them credit. But you know what? I'm going to give somebody credit here, somebody who deserves to have a little bit of love, a little bit of credit, a little bit of
they should play
our
Flash
attention.
Dance. What a feeling.
We're going to bring intern Andrew on because it is now time for trivia time with intern Andrew. And in fairness, this is the thing that we need probably more than oxygen tonight. This is the thing we need more than life itself. Intern Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. I mean, the question's good. I don't know if it's going to save the night, but
I need it to save the night. Can you please make it save the night?
Well, you know my feelings on the Washington Capitals.
You hate the Capitals.
So right now I'm that meme, like the straight up not having a good time right now.
Yeah.
So I would say what? We need some music for
I love that Anthony has all these ideas when he's not here.
Is he texting while driving?
He probably is. And if he gets in an accident, we will report him to the police.
Well, he's a typo right there. Like he put a space instead of the end.
They called it the I turn.
Do you notice that he
probably
has
just ran a red light.
He has no
He's driving
useful
and
feedback
texting.
when he's here. He doesn't help set up. He doesn't help tear down. And then he goes off and he's got things to say in the comments.
Neither do I.
Yeah, but you're the talent. We allow this for you.
Oh.
You mean that much
I'm
to
happy
us.
to help break down, guys. I just
No.
don't know what I'm doing, so
you
it's all
do
good.
your own beautiful Bundiness.
It's really
anyway,
okay.
let's go over, because you're the ultimate beaut. You can find that shirt over at shop.snowthegoalie.com. Intern Andrew, go ahead. So you hate the Capitals,
I would say
and here we are.
the genesis of my hatred for that team mostly comes from that 2008 playoff series. I was in 6th grade at Crofton Middle School in Crofton, Maryland, with these awful, awful Capitals fans that basically just bullied me that entire series. It was very mean. It was when the Flyers were up 3-1 in that series, and when they lost Game 6 here, I was like, if they lose in Game 7, I'm going to have to transfer schools. I was just getting harassed. Thank God for Joffrey Lupul.
Yes.
That Game 7 goal was maybe the best moment of my life. That was made possible because...
you got a lot of years left, kid.
Well, let's
At least
hope.
he hopes. Yeah.
We hope.
That was made possible because of a 2-minute tripping penalty on a Washington Capital that gave the Flyers a power play. Lupul took care of the rest. Who was the Capital that committed the penalty?
Well,
Backstrom.
I don't know. No. Was it Ovechkin?
It was not him. I'll narrow it down for you. Defenseman. Pride and joy of Worcester, Massachusetts. I just looked up today.
I don't know.
Can we have a hint? Can I buy a vowel?
You want
I'd like to buy an O.
There are 2 O's. First and last name have an O.
Wait, first name and last name. So it's
American
it's
defenseman.
It's an O in the first name and an O in the second in the last name. Okay.
Correct.
Bob. Tom.
Tom Wilson.
It's not Tom Wilson.
Oh, so it's a Tom though.
It's Tom.
It's not Tom Bergeron.
Oh, it is a Tom.
It's Tom Bergeron.
I can't think of a Tom that played defense for the Capitals.
He actually was there for a little bit. I think he played in Washington for 5 years.
Tom Pody. Come on. I didn't even. That like just sprung to my head. I don't even remember him, but I remember seeing that name in Washington all those years. Yeah. Is that who it is?
Yeah, that's right.
Tom Pody.
The only reason I know that, I didn't even have to look it up. The only reason I know that is because the game was broadcast on Versus. Right after Lupul scored, they panned over to Pody just sitting there in the penalty box like this, and I was like, "Oh, that is just such a great view." That was a great moment for me. But
well, you took away the ire of those rotten Capitals fans.
I did, yeah. But then, of course, they actually won a Stanley Cup since then. We haven't.
Wow. Okay, yeah. We're gonna
take the small wins where we can get them.
Yep.
So this is just a weird game tonight, guys. Good. That's a good trivia, though.
Well done by the
there's
intern.
A lot of guys that leave the game, you forget their name, and then they just pop back in. But yeah, there's not a lot to like, guys, in 40 minutes. And when you look at it, there's a million things they could do better. One of them is sustained pressure in the Washington zone.
Yeah,
they've had none of that in this game, and you can tell by the number of shots on goal. 13 for the Flyers. That tells me there's a lot of one and dones, if at all. But getting pucks in at the red line, sustained forecheck with pressure, and then continued reloads over top of that forecheck. We're not seeing any of that in this hockey game, and as a result, Washington, for the most part, can play it in a rocking chair and come out of the zone, and they get the odd chance at the other end when available.
There has been a lot of individualistic play in this game. We have seen guys try to weave the puck between two defenders too many times. We've seen too many one-man efforts that have missed the net wide happen again in that period. Sometimes, I don't know, Bundy, you can speak to this better, but when the team collectively can't get something going, how much of the pressure is then thrown onto your best players to individually make something happen? Is that...
Well, they try to do it. And I see one of the guys here, Mike Butts, saying, what pressure? And that's what we just said. There's been no pressure. There's been no forecheck. There's been no reloads. There's been no second chance opportunities. It's one and done. So you're right, Mike. There's been no pressure, and that's what I'm hoping they can somehow flip here in the beginning of the third period. But there's not been a whole lot of anything going on in this game. And it's been concerning the start of the year. I mean, they're on the hinges here. If they lose this game, it'll be 5 in a row, and that's nowhere the start that we thought we would have had.
Interesting stat there by Matt Vayer Bust. So this person decided to make a fan account, essentially. Mishkov 2 shots in the last 11 periods. What do you attribute that to? Because obviously we said last game they were really trying to feed it to him, and they were trying to get things to happen for Mishkov. Is this a situation where, because everything isn't, because so few things are actually trending in the right direction or going well, that he just can't find it? Is the defense shading his way to shut him down?
I learn more about Matvei Mishkov every single game I watch him. I see a lot of great things he does. I see a lot of learning moments as well that he needs to be taught and shown a lot of video. The one thing I know now about him, and just talking to some Flyer people, he's not a fleet of feet. He's not going to join a speedster like Connor McDavid on the rush and razzle and dazzle and whirl your world. It's not going to happen. He's a small space operator. He's a power play type of guy. That doesn't mean he's not going to be good 5-on-5. But what he does best is get himself positioned for shots. And that's what he's going to continue developing at.
LD Hockey 1 here brings up an interesting point. We talked about this last game a little bit. One of the things that we discussed on Saturday was that Rocky Thompson, early in the season when the power play was kind of clicking, pretty much told Torts, don't touch the power play units. Let the guys build chemistry. Stop tinkering. Leave them alone. Power play started to work. It went, 4 games in a row with a power play goal.
Mm-hmm.
Torts is really shuffling a lot. And now he's talking, going into intermission, about shuffling the lines again. At some point, does it make more sense as a head coach to just let the lines be, let the guys try to figure it out together instead of just constantly rotating? Like, what is the point if none of it's working? What's the point of over shuffling and not allowing these guys to build any kind of timing, chemistry, anything?
That's a fair point, because I really do believe you got to let guys sink in a little bit and let them see what's there. You know, if you don't like what you see after 20 minutes, I mean, you're looking usually at about 5 shifts.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to get a semblance of chemistry through 5 shifts. It's not going to work every single time, every single period that you're going to have 3 chances a period or 4 chances in a period where you look great. I think sometimes you got to let things breathe a little bit. Just leave them together for a bit. You're already down. Let them try to gel. But stick with what you have. It's very frustrating. I mean, talking to forwards over the years when guys start juggling lines. Now, sometimes you need to do it when there's nothing going on, and there's been nothing going on. But is the reason nothing's going on because of the changes, or because there's just no chemistry at all right now? And that's what I think both Tortorella's trying to figure out and the players are trying to comprehend in the same breath.
There are a couple of things here that I'm trying to piece together, and I'm trying to fully understand. Like, Coach Scott over here on Facebook says, is it better to have Mishkov playing? Oh, I thought you were messing. Playing in the NHL, but learn more of the American game in the minors. I don't think he's saying, like, send him down to the Phantoms. I think ultimately, if you're the Flyers, you're still happy that he's here and that he's learning at this level instead of him playing another season in the KHL. Right? Like, it's still more important that he develops under the tutelage of this coach or this coaching staff, this organization, and kind of learns what it is to play in the NHL. There was somebody else who also had a comment up here. It was Fishy over on YouTube who said, before we torch Mishkov, remember he's 19, also on a bad team. Kucherov started off slow in this league. That's a very fair point. You were very adamant about this last game with Luchenko. I think that, like, and we said this at the roundtable with Briere and Jones and Hilferty, the Flyers have to be very careful because they have marketed this team around Mishkov in some way. You can't set the fan expectations too high. And I think they've done a good job in interviews of kind of tamping down some of those expectations. But the last thing that this organization can afford is for the fans to feel like he's a bust, which is unbelievably unfair.
Yeah.
You have to keep things in perspective. It's okay to be frustrated with the team and frustrated that they're probably going to lose 5 straight. But, like, don't turn the ire on the kid.
Well, it's not over yet. Let's see what happens. Just give them a chance in this third period to try to get, like, to right themselves.
Yeah.
And if they can't, we'll move on, and they got another game tomorrow night, and they'll have to deal with that. But this is important right now, the third period. And you know what they need, Russ, here in the third period?
What's that?
They need a good forecheck early. Get 1 goal the first 5 to 7 minutes. You make Washington think about it. And that's the truth. But they can't give up another one in turn. You have to find a way to get the first goal in the third period.
We will be back post-game. No matter what happens, no matter if you turn the game off or not, we will be here post-game. Make sure you come back on the Snow the Goalie YouTube channel. Like the video. Seriously, like the video now. Like the video, share the video with other Flyers fans, and come back for the group therapy that will be the post-game. Win, lose, or those are your only 2 options. We will talk to all of you post-game here on the Press Row Show. Talk soon. Welcome into the Press Row Show post-game show, the number one rated post-game show this side of the Mississippi, south of the Arctic Circle, north of the equator. The Flyers have now played 2 games at home. I'm not exactly sure they know they've actually played a game at home, as they, once again, no-show on home ice. Very lucky to pick up a goal in this one. We did get to hear the goal song, unchanged, not exactly inspiring, and neither was their play on this evening. 1 goal in 2 games at home. Outshot 29-18 tonight. I think the final score was actually not even indicative of how dominant of a performance it was. And Washington didn't even play a particularly good game. This is Bundy, intern Andrew over there. Anthony on assignment for postgame. Bundy, your thoughts in the immediate aftermath?
Really, really rough night. And, they did exactly what we said they needed to do, right? If you get a goal early, go out and take advantage of it and then get back in the game. They scored a goal. They get scored back right on about a minute or 2 later. And they went away again. Like, you have to believe in what you're doing, that it's going to be okay, that you're going to follow a semblance of a system. But it was 2-1. They got the early goal in the third, and they disappeared as soon as Washington got kind of a cheap one, redirection in. That's not how you play. And I understand the fans' frustration. I understand the people that are watching this show, how frustrated they're. Because tonight it looked, from watching up here, it was a lackluster performance. Yeah. There wasn't a lot of second efforts. There wasn't a lot of anything good out here in this game. And as a result, you lose 4-1 to a team that isn't better than you, and you sure made them look like they were world beaters tonight. Now, you've got to get those blades on again, less than 24 hours now, and go out and play the same team again that just dominated you on home ice. So the Flyers right now are up against it. A situation right now where they've lost 5 in a row, and I'm telling you, tomorrow night becomes easily the biggest game of the year. This early in the year, it's a humongous game. They cannot fall too far back out of it.
Well, on a positive note, we expect that tomorrow in net will be Ivan Fedotov, who's gone off to a rip-roaring good start. Oh, wait, he hasn't. What are the odds that Torts goes back to Ayrton tomorrow?
I don't know. I think it's...
You have to assume on the second half of back-to-back you're gonna switch it up in net, but if you want to give yourself the best chance to win, it's still probably it's still Ayrton.
Getting a sense, and I haven't heard this directly, that there's a sense of concern from the game in Seattle the other night.
Yeah,
with Fedotov. Yeah, so I mean, they're definitely. I think they're definitely wondering what's going on, if there's another gear to his game.
Yeah,
and he's going to have to show it if he starts tomorrow night. I mean, the Flyers, honest to God, I know it's getting late early here, but they desperately need 2 points. They really do. As we said. Every game is like an NFL game now. And I say, just allude to the NFL because they only play 17 games. And when I say that, the 82 games now, I mean, when you look at the standings at the end of the year, you got 5 teams vying for that last playoff spot, last 2 spots. As we saw last year, the Capitals had to beat the Flyers last game of the year to get in and had to have a lot of other things happen in that game. There's all kinds of weird scenarios. So I'm telling you, the points early in the year, they're as important as those games that you win or don't win at the end of the year. And the Flyers got to figure this out quickly. I think the coach alluded to something along those lines, like, we don't have a lot of time here. And I don't know what that means, but my attitude when I hear someone say, well, this team doesn't have a lot of time, it means you don't have a lot of time for practice, and you don't have a lot of time to make up and come back in games, because you can't fall far out of the standings, or you're going to wind up in one of the worst spots you can in the conference. Right now, the Flyers are dead last in the Eastern Conference.
It's good if your team rebuild and team lottery. It's bad if your team... Let's see them build off of the momentum that they had in the first half of last year, or at least hope for a bounce back after a dismal end to the season. We've not seen that. Now, we have to be fair, because the post-game show, there's always a mix, and we drop it in the podcast feed, and we don't include pregame in the intermissions. So sometimes we end up going back to things that we talked about earlier in the game. There is a legitimate concern, at least from my vantage point, that the way this team is playing is not one that is a cohesive unit, and is not one that everyone is playing for each other, and that they're playing for this coach the way that they did in the first half of last year. They're not finishing checks. They're not playing a physical brand. You have Nick Delorier in the game early. They concede a goal. Yeah. Delorier goes out, tries to get everybody started with a big fight, which is, great if you're into that kind of thing. But I'd much rather just see the team go out and put together an actual goal. But the Delorier thing, that didn't work. They didn't do a particularly good job of getting anything.
No response to the fight at all, which was interesting. Response. They were down 1-0. Delorier went right out to McElrath, who's a big, tough customer too, and they went at it. It was a good, tough fight. something that you should respond to your bench, and they didn't at all. They disappeared. I can't explain the lack of energy and lack of effort. And I don't want to say that's usually because this is a team and players that we saw a lot of great efforts from last year. They were in spots they shouldn't have been. They found a way to win games. That's not happened this year. And as we said, as Anthony said last period, we thought maybe what's happened this year would be what would happen last year.
Yeah.
And they surprised everybody and they proved everybody wrong. I remember Danny said, it's not going to be up to us. What happens, it's going to be up to the players. They'll have a decision in this, how they compete and how they play. And not once inside the first 20 games last year did we see a performance like we did here tonight or Saturday against the Vancouver Canucks, where the Flyers were simply lackluster and out of energy and out of effort.
We are going to give, and I see Rob Greeley here with the Lawton -4, Zamula -3. Yikes. We're going to give Lawton a pass tonight. Lawton became a dad.
Yeah, okay. So
we are going to give, if there's one guy on the team that we're going to give a pass to tonight, he didn't have a particularly great game, Scott Lawton. But he and his wife just
had a baby.
And they made the announcement an hour before the puck dropped. So that was a really great moment. So we're going to give Scott Lawton the benefit of that tonight. I'm actually surprised that he played.
No. You play.
I know
if they get you to the building, you'll play.
Yeah. But it wasn't a great game. Here's the thing. It's easy in a moment like this to start to dive into the negativity. And my friends, we can dive into negativity. This can be group therapy. We actually just got a super chat, so we'll go over to that right now. Rory says, not trading TK will haunt the Flyers for 6 years. Average player who just yaps. Mishkov needs a center with similar hockey IQ. Flyers simply don't have it.
Well,
the Konechny contract, we did talk about this in the offseason. My one critique of this team in the front office going back to last year is it feels like a lot of half measures. And at some point, you have to make a commitment one way or the other. They kept Scott Lawton yet again, who other teams were interested in, who they could have gotten draft capital for. They chose not to. They extended Nick Seeler. They extended Travis Konechny to a big contract. They have given out deals to Paling, to Hathaway. They give these contracts out. And for all the thing about culture, for as much emphasis as Tortorella has put on culture since being here, that performance tonight doesn't look like a culture that is permeating its way through a locker room and is playing out the way that it should. This team should, at the very least, even though they're not a very talented team, should at least look competitive. Tonight, they didn't even have that.
Okay, we're what are we, 6 games in?
Yeah.
Everybody needs to take a deep breath. I'm seeing stuff here for tank for Hagens, all this kind of stuff. Everybody just settle down, all right? Because there's no guarantee you can tank and lose 82 games. There's still no guarantee you're going to get that player because of the lottery, right? So I don't like that. And there's a lot of negativity right now. I understand that, but it's early in the year. There's a lot of things that have to happen. A lot of things have not happened. My biggest concern, if people want to know what it is for this team, it's them falling too far behind, that they'll never be able to catch the season. And, when you get to that 10-game mark, you're 15% into the season. You're starting to make some room here, like we're in terms of where it's at. So, Thanksgiving is a month away, American Thanksgiving. And that seems to be kind of the date where people say there's a gauge, right? They're saying like if teams are in by then. I don't believe those stats quite like I did before, like it was 15 or 20 years ago, because I always felt there was bottom feeders that were just going to simply sink at the end of the year. But I think it's different now, and that's why these games are just so absolutely important. Like they're mind-bogglingly important right now, because if you don't find a way to be in this at Thanksgiving, you're going to chase the season.
I guess the question ultimately does come down to, is that really the worst thing in the world? I think that ultimately, if this team in year 2 of a rebuild is pretty far out of it, it's not a bad thing, but it's about how you get there. Again, you can field a team that isn't very talented, that goes out and does try to win every night, but you're effectively fielding a team that has no chance of winning. You could still work on culture. You can still work
100%.
on...
That was part of it last year, Russ. They had a culture.
Exactly. And so that's why, to me, it's like, if this team looked competitive in these last 5 losses, I'd say, okay, the things that you're working toward are still there. But they haven't looked good. These 2 games at home especially, they have looked dreadful. And they've looked uninspired. And that, to me, is a legitimate red flag. And I think that it's fair to look at it and feel like there are maybe some things that are worth being, concerned about. Now, Ryan A. sent us a super chat in Canadian money. Bundy, can you do the conversion there? $6.99 Canadian. What is that? What does that come out to?
It's about $1.19 US.
Nobody ever mentions how many.
Ryan A, I love you anyway, but I don't care what that averages out to. Thanks very much. You didn't
Thank
have
you,
to
Ryan.
do that.
That is very kind of you.
We're going to answer your question, my friend.
Nobody ever mentions how many mistakes Carter Hart covered up. Ersson is nowhere near that level. They went downhill when he left. We have talked about that. We talked about it in the offseason. We talked about it in the beginning of the season. We've talked about it both press row shows, especially during pregame. We talked about it with Bill Meltzer before the game tonight. The massive difference among all the other things between the start of last year and the start of this year is that Hart and Ersson together overperformed where they looked like two legitimate number one goalies. Kept this team in games, allowed the team to pick up points that maybe otherwise they didn't deserve or that they wouldn't have picked up, and they did. They're not getting that goaltending this year, but in fairness, I would argue that without Walker, right, like we saw how big of an impact it had when Walker was traded last year. Without him, this defensive core just isn't very good. Like Jamie Drysdale right now. We talked about Drysdale.
He's someone with the Flyers earlier today told me he's still in Anaheim mode defensively. That's the word for word that I got. And I know people are going to jump on it. What do you mean that?
Yeah, well, no, like actually,
no. But what I'm
elaborate
telling you,
on that a little
I'm
bit.
going to tell you what it means. He was with a crappy team since he was 18. He got drafted 6th overall, right? They played him right away. You don't learn anything playing for a team like that except that you can go home and brag in the summer that you just played in the NHL. But you did nothing with your development. You've not advanced your own agenda. They've not advanced it for you. So when the trade came out last year and they had a malcontent here, they felt that they wanted the Flyers end up getting a good person off the ice, which is important, but they felt that they were getting a number one power play guy. And I still believe that's where they're at with him. The problem with him is they need to rebuild a player that can play premium minutes, 5-on-5, 4-on-4, whatever, and on top of the power play where they can trust him. And right now, if I'm a coach, I have a hard time trusting Jamie Drysdale at even strength. Now, he's not alone. Don't put words in my mouth by saying he's the only guy. But he's a guy that came here. He's an important piece because they gave away a lot to get him. And when you have a player like that, you have to use him to his positives. And I don't think right now where he's at, he's been put in situations that play to his strength. On the power play, his best power play has been the ones when he shot. 5-on-5, I don't need a lot from him. If I'm a defenseman like a Jamie Drysdale or a smaller size defenseman, I would tell them to go watch all the Duncan Keith video you can find of how he competed in the zone. He was just a master with the stick, super competitive getting pucks out of the zone. That would be a great guy to mimic and just take a look at some of the stuff he did. But Drysdale and a lot of guys right now, and I made it one of my keys on 97.5 tonight, even strength play has got to get better. It's not. And it's been the determining factor of why this team has been beaten down so bad at the beginning of the season.
The return of Nick Seeler tonight didn't give the team the extra jam. Nick Delorier being in the lineup didn't seem to do much. They brought Noah Cates back in. Tyson Forster scratched in this one. When you look back on it, I mean, I look at what Tyson Forster is, the way that the coaching staff talked about him last year and even going into this season. To me, again, like I know that I go back to the word rebuild a lot, but should Tyson Forster have been scratched in this game? Like, was there anything that makes it like
you could have scratched 8 guys in this game tonight? And Torts had his reason for scratching Forster, and we'll see if he can light a fire under him tomorrow night. He'll be back in the lineup tomorrow night. There's absolutely he'll be back in.
You'd have to think so.
I mean, there's a lot of things you could probably change and try to tweak on the train down to DC tonight. But the Flyers, I mean, the first thing they can control is their compete level. And anything in a positive note in that would be anything better than we've seen so far. I mean, you can control what you do and your effort out there. Tonight was listless. Like, that is a terrible game to watch, and rightly so. We see the frustration by the fans. You can't whitewash a game like this. You can't make it go away. It sticks out like a sore thumb, and the fans, unfortunately, as the first game of this slate tonight on ESPN, got a first-hand look at what was a really rough night for the Flyers.
Yeah, it was just there. The unfortunate thing is you can't really take much of a positive out of this. I guess if you wanted to, Matvei Michkov picks up an assist on the Sanheim goal. He's got 5 points in 6 games. That's it. Like, that's legitimately, if you're looking for a positive to come out of it, if you're like an ultimate, Michkov truther, like, there you go. That's the one good thing you take out of it. But the thing, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, the Flyers get that goal to start the period, and then immediately of game time, gave it right back.
Right away.
It's not even like they didn't even allow themselves to kind of feel like they're back in the game because they immediately gave it back. If you're John Tortorella and you're looking at the lineup between last night and tomorrow, are you looking to switch things up again? I mean, we probably expect that Forster is going to be back in. Maybe Delorier's out, or maybe they pull Noah Cates out. Maybe Fedotov is in net. Does it almost benefit them to make those switches? Like, does it benefit Torts to just leave the lines alone? We talked about this during the intermission shows for the people who were listening in postgame and didn't join us for this. He did so much shuffling of the lines tonight, and he's been doing it now through 6 games. It's like, at some point, let the lines alone. Let the guys figure it out together. I don't know how you build any kind of cohesion.
You can't get any chemistry unless you let things grow together, and then they sometimes will disassemble themselves. But you have to let it get to that point. You can't just go out and say, oh, there's no chemistry here. We got to change all the lines after one period. You got to sometimes let it just roll through and let guys get to learn each other or get to know them. As we said before, I've said it many times, he likes to work in pairs for forwards and then put a third guy on. But he hasn't found the chemistry in those pairs yet. And that's frustrating, I think, in a sense. But at some point, you just got to play your lines, get an idea of what you want to put in every night, and just let them play. Just let them play hockey.
Yeah. There was one other thing that happened tonight. I guess if we can turn the page on this Flyers game, which was pathetic, and you can keep commenting, and we'll bring some of them up here. If anybody else has a question, comment, concern that they really want to get to, intern Andrew is filtering them right now, distilling the very best ones we have. Bundy, tonight, as you mentioned, was the first game on a loaded slate of NHL action. It was NHL Frozen Frenzy. All 16 teams in action tonight. Triple header on ESPN.
Yeah.
They decided to do this on the same night as opening night in the NBA. Now, I know that there are people out there who say hockey fans hate basketball, basketball fans hate hockey. Frozen Frenzy is an awesome thing. Like, ESPN does a great job with it. The league as a whole, like, the coverage is great. They do a wraparound show that's like NFL Red Zone. Like, they do the whole... All 16 teams in action tonight. A great opportunity to potentially pull in casual viewers. There's no World Series yet. There's obviously no NFL tonight. Why the hell did they pick tonight? Why pick it the same night that the NBA opening?
Why wouldn't they have done it last week?
This is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know. Why would you go up against, like, I mean, you look at the TVs up here, right? There's 2 NBA games and 1 hockey game on right now.
Yeah.
On these TVs.
Yeah.
And there's a whole stretch of them. So I don't know, but I
Celtics Knicks, by the way. Celtics Knicks.
That's a big game.
Two big markets.
Big game, right?
2 teams that are viewed as like being legitimate contenders. And you have Lakers and Timberwolves in the second game. That's still going to attract eyes as well. Why do it on the same night? I don't get it.
Yeah,
it's like the league can't get out of its own way.
I don't get it. And I'm with you. I love the way they set it up. Every game going off half an hour after the next.
Yeah.
Like, it's boom, 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 boom. There's great. They're all in ESPN Plus. I'll get home and I'm still going to be able to catch the 9:30 start, Pittsburgh and Calgary. And then they go again, 10:15 and then 45 minutes because it's later. And then you get 11 o'clock start tonight to finish the game, the Vegas game. But I don't know. I love the concept because it's selling the game of hockey.
It's great.
It's great. And people get all up into it and everything, but it's not real.
It actually
not a good one.
Can you imagine, like, when college football is over?
Yeah.
So you're going into the next calendar year. College football's over. Imagine, like, one Saturday a month.
Yeah.
You did Frozen Frenzy. Like, that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah.
That could be a pretty cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, pull in the casual viewers.
Yeah.
Why do it on the same night as opening night?
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm with you.
We want to thank everybody who tuned in post-game, who tuned in during the intermissions, pre-game, all that.
We'll be longer when we get a win and a lot more
I
time.
mean,
But
I
there's
don't
not a whole
even know.
lot.
How long did we do post-game tonight, intern Andrew? Have you been keeping track of anything? Like how...
22 minutes.
We 20-ish minutes into post-game? That's not
Something
bad.
like that, yeah.
Oh, he's coming on. Let's see.
We started at the 3 hour and 5 minute mark. So
we're only 19 minutes in. Oh, no, we got to go longer, Bundy.
All right. Well, we'll carry it.
Let's see. Anything else over in the comments that we wanted to get
Anyone
to?
got any questions? Anyone got any line or
We got a lot of people saying
questions?
stuff about, like, the tank is on.
There's no tank. You can't. Guys are not going to tank. They don't know how to tank. A coach can get you to. If you play a sieve in the pipes every single night, you're tanking.
Sure.
But that's not the plan because the organization wants the players to develop, to continue to win, to build on last year. But it's not happened. It's been a dismal, rough start to this year.
Okay, I'm going to take Michael Sirkin's question here. and I'm going to apply it, and I'll throw it to you because it does kind of have to do with the idea of picking a direction for the season. So they've lost 5 games in a row. If this gets to 8, 9, their annual 10-game losing streak to start a season, I'm not sure that they're going to fire Tortorella. I think that they still think so highly of him within the organization that it seems very hard to imagine that they'd fire him. Aside
Russ
from
Gretzky got traded
I'm just saying, like
in the 80s. Listen.
If they get to 10 straight losses, then I think it's an actual conversation. Interesting note in pregame, I think Amp pointed out that there was a combination of people around the balcony level tonight. And the last time that we remembered seeing that many people, it was around the time that Hextall was relieved of his duties. It's interesting to note that there were a lot of Flyers heavy hitters, we'll say, that were up here in and around this game tonight. Doesn't necessarily mean anything is imminent, but it certainly makes you think, oh, there could be something here.
Got a little nugget here on this is a good question. I actually got paired with Zubov when I went to Dallas because I was really good with Desjardins, obviously, for 10 years. I came back and played my last year with him. That was a whole different story. But that guy, Zubov, was the most unbelievably gifted and calm hockey player I'd ever seen. And you know what? Yeah, he was a good player in the D zone too. He made subtle plays. Not a world beater defensively, but he couldn't be because he was so good offensively. That guy was one of the most talented players I ever played with. And I would, if you told me that Drysdale could be Sergei Zubov, man, I tell you what, you'd have a hell of a player if you had that. If you could turn one of those guys into that. That's not the trajectory I see right now. But I understand. It's a great question by Tony Louie. Really is, because he is a great example of that. Someone I didn't think of. Good call right there, Tony.
You know, the last thing here is, so the idea of direction. If they do have the wheels kind of fall off here to start, do they start having the conversations about moving some of the guys that they've been hesitant to move? Like, do they actually start to, not that they would make a trade 10 games in, that doesn't usually happen, but do they start to take a look at it and say, all right, this probably isn't going to be one of those magical seasons like last year where we're going to be competing for a playoff spot at the end of the season? Do they start to maybe actually consider moving a Lawton when the deadline comes around? Do they start making those decisions now where you start kind of...
I'm going to be optimistic, Russ, and I'm going to say I'm going to give this team a chance to turn the corner. I don't know if they're going to, but I'm willing to sure give them a chance because we saw stuff last year. Now, 1 year is not the year before. It doesn't mean it is at all. But I'd like to see them try to get a win tomorrow night. I want to see how they respond here tonight. To me, I may see the game differently than you or Intern or Anthony or anyone else. But tomorrow night, from what I'm watching, is going to dictate a lot about who this team is and where they are right now as a group.
If it's listless again, are you concerned? Like at that point,
100%. Yeah. And I've seen weird things happen in hockey. They didn't stink against Vancouver. They lost. They were in mud again. Tonight they were in quicksand.
Yeah,
it was bad. Like it was listless, and that's concerning. But what really counts tomorrow night is a game where you end up kind of feel like when you go out there, you should feel like you're playing for your life.
Yeah,
your hockey
there has
life.
to be that urgency.
There absolutely, and if there's not, it's going to tell a big story. So I'm asking people tomorrow night, if you're watching, from a guy who played a long time and has an understanding of where people want you to be in this game, tomorrow night is a tell-all everything for me early in the year.
So the Flyers are in Washington on Wednesday night, taking on the Capitals. Then they come back here for back-to-back on the weekend. It's a 1:30 start on Saturday against the Wild at home. And then on Sunday night, they host the Canadiens.
Yeah.
You have to hope that things are going to turn around. Now, we will be back later this week with an episode.
Quick promo, though, for Sunday night. In case everybody knows, I'm hosting Recovery Night. Mm-hmm. Recovery Night, the Montreal game. We're going to take pictures after the game. You get a coin before, so when you come in down in the atrium on the side that faces Lincoln Financial, they're going to be handing out recovery coins. We have an amazing crowd coming that night, so if you're down here, come enjoy a hockey game and hang out with a bunch of sober people. It'd be a great night.
That's really awesome.
It is super cool. Great job by the Flyers doing that, and we have an amazing amount of tickets sold for it, so it's going to be a good night on a Sunday. Awesome. And that will be right after the Eagles game, so if you're watching a New Orleans game, we'll be catching the fourth quarter probably here before the Flyers game starts.
Yeah, there we go.
Good.
I love it. We'll be back later this week with an episode of Snow the Goalie. We'll be back on Saturday with the Press Row Show, Sunday with the Press Row Show. Do you have anything? Are you going to be hopping on any like NHL National Sirius Radio or anything this week?
I don't think anybody.
You always tell me like right as you're about to go on air, you tell me like, just half hour hit, and I'm like, I would have promoted that.
You know what? Nobody wants to talk to anybody from Flyers land right now, so I won't be having my XM hit on the way to the game anytime soon.
Well, that's a bummer.
I do love going on there. Great guys. They always have good entertainment and drive time afternoon show. And but yeah, right now it's Flyers need. I'm telling you, tomorrow night's going to be is a critical game. If you're looking for early game importance, tomorrow night's the one to watch.
All right. I guess that's time to wrap. And
Good night, everybody.
Andrew, thank you for doing the work on the board. Bundy, thank you. Everybody out there.
Pappy Schmears is a funny guy. Is he? The beers are half price. I've
What just-
recovered it.
what just-
I got to laugh at stuff like that. What am I going to do with that, right?
Don't
What
put it
cover?
up. Don't
What,
put it
what
up.
do I have? Like, what?
That's,
Don't put that up there. Jesus.
It's mean. It's funny, but it's mean.
that's awful. Anyway, we will be back later this week. If you want to, you can join me tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. over on my YouTube show. We'll break this down. We'll talk about the Flyers. God help us. God help us. If this losing streak extends beyond tomorrow, and we come back here on Saturday, and we're looking at 6 straight with a chance of 8 straight by the end of Sunday night.
I may have lost my appetite for alcohol, but I didn't lose my appetite for laughing at a really bad joke.
There you go. All right, and on that, it's time for us to end. Thank you so much for watching, maybe even listening in the podcast feed. If you haven't
Thanks
done
for
so
the
already,
laugh, guys.
hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, share this with all your friends, your family. Let them know about Snow the Goalie and the Press Row Show. We will talk to all of you later this week. Have a good night, everybody.